If you ask people what they think heaven looks like, you'll probably hear the same answers. A city high in the heavens where the righteous reside after death, with gates made of a single giant pearl, golden roads, angels singing sweet-voiced choral songs, and a radiant light that envelops everything around. On the highest place rises a magnificent palace, which is inhabited by angelic hosts. Finally, on the holiest of thrones sits none other than God himself. Well, at least that's the typical idea of heaven we're used to. But we're not going to talk about that vision of heaven in this video. In other religions, paradise is described in a very different way. Now imagine that paradise looks like this: a multi-layered world made up of 10 levels, each of which fulfills its own specific role. On one level, righteous souls enjoy their eternal reward. Another houses cosmic phenomena, the movement of the stars and planets. A third is inhabited by the angelic host itself. The higher the level, the closer it is to God. All these kingdoms form a sort of spiral that circles around the divine throne. And every creature, from the seraphim to the saints to the righteous souls, is constantly singing praises to God. This description, however, does not come from Dante's Divine Comedy, nor is it something inspired by medieval painting, nor is it a conceptual idea from a work of art. It is the heaven described in the Ethiopic Bible, the world's most extensive and most mysterious Bible, and probably the most ancient. But the big question is, why does it describe a very different picture of heaven? And what does that mean? Before we dive into the description of heaven we find in the Ethiopic Bible, you're probably wondering a few things. For example, what does this Bible actually represent? If this is the first time you're hearing about it, the Ethiopian Bible, or more accurately the Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church Bible, is one of the most ancient and unique collections of writings in Christianity. Written in the ancient Ge'ez language, this version of the Christian Bible is used in the Tewahedo Orthodox churches in Ethiopia and Eritrea. It is divided into two canons, a narrower and a broader one. The narrower one includes 81 books, while the broader one contains another 7 books. In total, 88 books make the Ethiopic Bible the most comprehensive and largest biblical canon in Christianity. By comparison, the most popular version of the Bible, that of the King James, contains only 66 books. Even the Vulgate, the first Latin translation of the Bible, and the most popular for 1,000 years before the King James, has between 76 and 78 books, depending on which source you read. When the Ethiopic Bible became more widely known worldwide in the modern era, it aroused great interest among scholars and ordinary people alike, and for a variety of reasons. One of these is that only one copy of it exists in the entire world. Hidden in a secluded monastery in the Tigrayan heights of Ethiopia, this ancient specimen has survived the ravages of time, countless invasions, and a fire that destroyed the monastery's church. Truly a miracle. The monks refused anyone who wanted to remove the manuscript from the monastery. Moreover, it is locked in a safe place in a secret chamber in the monastery, which in turn is located in an almost inaccessible place 7,000 feet above sea level. In short, the Ethiopic Bible includes books that cannot be found in more common Bibles, such as the Book of Jubilees, the first book of Ezra, the second book of Ezra, 3 additional books of Maccabees, and the Book of Enoch. These additional books have a great deal to do with making the paradise described in the Ethiopian Orthodox Church a little different from what we imagine as a typical paradise, especially in the Book of Enoch. Let's start there. In the Ethiopic Bible, heaven is not described as a vast linear realm where time has no meaning, but rather as a multi-layered infinite realm where past, present, and future coexist. Furthermore, unlike the static paradise common in Western conceptions, the Ethiopian biblical version presents it in a more complex way. In this paradise, divine purpose is closely intertwined with space and time, to the point that there are 10 levels of paradise. As mentioned in the introduction, each of the heavens in the Ethiopian biblical canon serves a specific purpose. In the Book of Enoch, the protagonist goes to heaven led by 2 angels. He is 365 years old. One night, while tossing and turning in his sleep, Enoch awoke to see 2 angels standing at his bedside. He describes the angels this way: "Then 2 huge men appeared to me, such as I had never seen on earth. Their faces were like the shining sun. Their eyes were like burning lamps. From their mouths, fire was coming forth. Their clothing was various singing. Their wings were more glistening than gold. Their hands were whiter than snow. Excerpt from the Book of Enoch. Enoch was understandably afraid, but the angels told him not to be. After instructing his sons, he said goodbye. Enoch left with the angels. They led him over the earth until they reached the first heaven. There he passed by the clouds and saw the ether. Then he saw an ocean much larger than any on earth. This description is consistent with the story of the creation of the world in Genesis, in which God divides the waters into two, and between them is the firmament, a heavenly barrier that separates the earthly waters from the heavenly. When they reached the second heaven, Enoch discovered something unexpected. There was absolute darkness in that place. At this very moment, you might be asking yourself, why is the second heaven completely devoid of light? Well, this place has a special purpose. It houses the fallen angels. The natural question follows, shouldn't they be in hell and not in heaven? This is one of the remarkable differences between the typical scenario of heaven and hell when it comes to the Ethiopian Bible. The place of torment and suffering is not under our feet, but in one of the heavens. In the third heaven, Enoch finds heaven and hell existing simultaneously. In one part of the third heaven, he sees heaven represented by the Garden of Eden, lush green vegetation, fragrant flowers, flowing rivers of milk and honey, and shining fields. This is where the righteous souls will go after death. Here is also the tree of life, which emits divine light and provides sustenance for all in paradise. Unfortunately, there is an area to the north that is completely in contrast to this place. In this region, eternal fire consumes the damned but never destroys them. Complete darkness reigns everywhere, and the cries and groans of the unrighteous echo throughout the territory. Steadfast angels watch over this place, allowing none to escape eternal torment. The coexistence of hell and paradise in the third heaven is one of the things that makes the paradise described in the Ethiopian Bible unique. In the fourth heaven are the sun and the moon. They are overseen by angels who see to it that all is well with the world below. On the fifth level is another kind of hell. This is the special place for the Watchers, the 200 angels led by Semyaza, who descend to earth and marry mortal women. Unlike the previous hell-like places, here the Watchers are in a state of limbo, waiting for the day when the last judgment will come. The sixth heaven is where the angels reside, the ones who govern the laws of the cosmos and humans. These are the archangels charged with the task of observing nature and measuring the affairs of mankind on earth. In the seventh heaven, where the angels dwell, Enoch's two leaders leave him. He is left alone, trembling and overwhelmed with fear. At that moment, the archangel Gabriel arrives to take over as his guide. From here, Enoch receives permission to contemplate the holy throne and see the Lord himself. The eighth and ninth heavens are very similar to each other, the only difference being the upper firmament that separates them. In these heavens are the constellations and the changing of the seasons. Finally, the 10th heaven is where God sits. He is surrounded by angelic hosts, particularly the cherubim and seraphim. Speaking of which, the angels in the Ethiopic Bible are more mystical and more inspiring, to put it simply. If you're used to angelic beings with human appearances depicted in Western art and architecture, you'd be surprised how the Ethiopian Bible describes them. In the Book of Enoch, some angels are still described with a human-like appearance. But unlike the more clearly defined physical form with which angels are depicted in other Christian churches, the angels in the Ethiopic Bible are more ethereal, spiritual, and mystical. Take, for example, the categories of angels. While most of us think that all angels have a human-like appearance, or, at the other extreme, a completely extraterrestrial one, the books of the Ethiopian canon mention different kinds of angelic beings. There are, of course, the familiar ones, angels, archangels, cherubim, and seraphim. But there are also warrior angels, angels of creation, angels of judgment, chronicler angels, watchers, etc. Each angelic category has a specific role assigned to them by God. Archangels, for example, are charged with missions related to the governance of the cosmos. At the same time, the seraphim, cherubim, and angels of the presence stand closest to God's throne, singing songs of praise, meanwhile guarding the throne and interceding for humanity. Mainstream Christian beliefs also support some of these views of angels, but the Ethiopic Bible goes deeper into their role beyond that of messengers of God, protectors, and watchers of humanity. Related to this, there is another striking difference between the notion of the heavenly in the Ethiopic Bible and that of other Christian churches: the relationship of humanity to the divine. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church is one of the few Christian denominations that believes in miaphysitism, a doctrine that Jesus Christ is both divine and human in one nature. This is in contrast to diophysitism, which holds that Jesus is one person with two distinct natures, divine and human. This belief also reflects on the strict separation between God and His creation. Consequently, there is a definite hierarchy in heaven. In the Ethiopic Bible, however, this distinction is not so strict. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church emphasizes the sacramentality and unity of the divine and human natures of Christ. While God has a clear transcendence and dominion over all things, creation is still imbued with God's presence. This belief is reflected in the way the heavenly realms are often described in the Book of Enoch. In the lower planes, souls are divided on the basis of their earthly works, distinguishing the righteous from the damned. Then there are the fallen angels, beings who were once obedient servants of God, but rebelled and were cast out. In the higher planes dwell the faithful angels who have remained steadfast in their devotion to God's throne and fulfill the roles of messengers, protectors, and worshippers. Finally, in the center or highest realm is God Himself, who rules over all creation, symbolizing supreme power, justice, and divine order. This compatibility and unity are also manifest in the way the Ethiopian Bible blurs the boundary between the natural and spiritual realms. Recall that in the third heaven, paradise is described in detail as a wondrous, eternal, and abundant garden where the divine light shines unceasingly. In this vision, the natural world is in perfect harmony with the spiritual. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church has always emphasized the close relationship between the natural and the spiritual. Did you know that Ethiopian Orthodox churches are almost always located in small wooded areas that are carefully maintained by the monks and local church communities? For over 1,500 years, these forests have been well preserved and considered sacred by the Ethiopian Orthodox Church. Unfortunately, due to environmental changes and the effects of erosion, these forests are now greatly diminished. But why does the Ethiopian Bible differ significantly from other Christian denominations in the way it describes paradise? There are two reasons. One is its historical independence and antiquity. As the only country in Africa that has never been colonized, Ethiopia has managed to preserve its unique cultural and religious identity for a millennium and a half. This is impressive for a country located at the crossroads between East and West, where conflicts over religion, trade routes, and political influence have raged for centuries. The Ethiopian Orthodox Church traces its origins back to at least 330 AD, but several biblical verses mention that there were a number of Ethiopian Christian converts as early as the 1st century. Some of them were even converted by the apostles of Jesus. The history of the Ethiopian Church can be traced back even further, all the way back to the time of King Solomon. According to the Ethiopian epic Kebra Nagast, the glory of kings, the Queen of Sheba, whose domain encompassed parts of present-day Ethiopia and Yemen, visited King Solomon in Jerusalem. The two fell in love and had a son, Menelik I, who became ruler of his mother's kingdom. According to Ethiopian Orthodox tradition, he took with him the Kivot of the Covenant, which is believed to remain in Ethiopia to this day. The isolation of the Ethiopian Church protected it from outside influences, especially from Roman Catholicism. Moreover, unlike the latter, which has imposed a unified structure among its followers worldwide, Ethiopian Christianity is deeply connected to the local traditions and beliefs of the population. The second reason is that the Ethiopian Bible itself is unique in the sense that it includes books that in other Christian churches are considered pseudographies or apocrypha. The notion of paradise in the Ethiopic Bible is fascinating and prompts deep reflection. But although the description differs, the basic message remains the same. Salvation can only be achieved through God. And if you'd like to learn more about the only and most ancient copy of the Bible found in Ethiopia, continue with the video you see to the left.